Welcome back to the Octagon Lab. Today, I wanted to break down how Quillan Salkilld matches up against all top 5 lightweights in the UFC right now. We actually made 2 videos back to back on this channel as to why Salkilld is such a bad stylistic matchup for Mateusz Gamrot. So honestly, I saw that dominating performance coming from a mile away. He goes out there, gets a first round submission on Gamrot, and now a lot of people are calling him a future champ and a real problem to the lightweights in the division, which is why I wanted to go and break down how I see his matchups playing out against the top 5 in the division and learn, do we need to pump the brakes on Quillan Salkilld, or is he someone that's actually destined for the lightweight championship? So the 5th ranked lightweight currently right now is Paddy Pimblett, and I think this is probably the most intriguing matchup for a Quillan Salkilld. Now, it's something to note that's interesting. Obviously, a lot of people are going to overhype Quillan Salkild's ground game after this Mateusz Gamrot performance. And when I say overhype, I mean yes, Salkilld dominated Gamrot on the ground. That is true. But you kind of have to go look at a lot of the other factors, right? Because when you start doing math like that, a lot of people prior to the fight were saying Gamrot went and out-scrambled Arman, beat Arman. Fights play out differently and a lot of different things are happening within the fight. Someone like Arman is, a wrestler in his own right. So when Gamrot and Arman are wrestling back and forth, they're both trying to wrestle each other. And that's why those scrambles are a lot different than what Salkilld was potentially trying to do. Because early on, if Salkilld is trying to defend it, he's trying to defend a takedown and strike with Gamrot. He ends up hurting Gamrot, and then every scramble after that, Gamrot is clearly already hurt. He's bleeding. Damage has already been done, and Gamrot, while he's never been knocked out, he doesn't take damage in the best way. And Salkilld, one thing that I think is probably underrated about Salkilld is we got to start talking about his power, right? Like he has real power. He's putting people out all the time. And someone like a Nasrat Haqparast, for example, if Salkilld doesn't have the power he has, he maybe doesn't even beat a Nasrat Haqparast, because Haqparast, while that fight was only 2 minutes long, was looking sharp on the feet. His takedown defense was solid in the sense of he didn't have to defend any real takedown shots, but he was always out of range. And when Salkilld wanted to shoot, it looked hella telegraphed. So that is one thing to note in the sense of Salkild's power really came through for him in that Nasrat fight. And if Salkilld has less power, maybe skill-wise, he doesn't even beat someone like a Nasrat Haqparast. So that's something to note. Interesting here. Similarly, in this Gamrot fight, I think Salkild's takedown defense is really high level. I think it's really good. Gamrot tried to take him down early. I think he got him to the ground pretty quickly, but Salkilld was able to get back up and then do damage on the feet, which is what we were going to say, is that Salkild's ground game is very competent, and then he can go do damage on the feet to someone like Gamrot. And then after that, Gamrot is hurt. And then, yes, Gamrot is scrambling with Salkilld, and Salkild's getting the better of him in those exchanges. But I think that potentially, if he doesn't hurt Gamrot, those scrambles, I think, look a little bit different, which is why a matchup like Paddy Pimblett becomes so intriguing because of that point. Because I think Paddy Pimblett is the flip side of a Gamrot. He's someone that's actually extremely hard to hurt, extremely hard to wobble. His chin is insane. And it's not like a, Gamrot type of chin where he doesn't get knocked out, because yes, you can hurt Paddy Pimblett, but he actually recovers insanely quick. And he doesn't actually ever seem like, he's insanely hurt inside the octagon. So someone like a Paddy Pimblett, when he's scrambling with, Salkilld, he's going to be scrambling at his full ability almost. Where I thought Gamrot scrambling with Salkilld, it's like a very hurt Gamrot that thinks he might be out of there at any point. So, those scrambles are going to be a little bit weaker on the Mateusz Gamrot side. Paddy Pimblett in this matchup, I think here's the things that Paddy Pimblett will be really good at, right? I think Paddy Pimblett's chin is better. We haven't really seen this out of Salkilld, but we've seen Salkilld get dropped with that flash jab from Beneil Dariush. And overall, I think the way Salkilld absorbs shots on the feet, I don't like his reactions nearly as much as someone like Paddy Pimblett. Also, Pimblett has an S-tier chin as well, so it's going to be hard to have a better chin and better durability than Paddy Pimblett. On top of that, I'm still thinking the jury is out on Quillan Salkild's cardio. Now, things are interesting, right? I think that based on how you're fighting, based on how the fight is going, you can maybe go 5 rounds one day, maybe you can't go 5 rounds another day. We've seen this. We saw Khamzat Chimaev be able to sit on DDP for 5 rounds because DDP is not doing much back, so Chimaev can go do that all day long, right? But then Khamzat Chimaev gasses out when Sean Strickland's giving him a lot of pressure to stand back up. Sean Strickland's doing a lot of work. Not just Sean Strickland, but even someone like a Kamaru Usman is, fighting back fairly well against Khamzat Chimaev. He's just gassing out in those fights. So cardio is something that's going to be interesting for Quillan Salkilld. I think the jury is still out. We've seen him fade, especially if he has to force a lot of wrestling. So something that you'll see in these matchup breakdowns is matchups where he's going to have to force wrestling. I think cardio is going to be a big play into question here. And here, I think it's interesting because I think that Salkilld is the better striker than between him and Paddy Pimblett. I think Salkilld has more power. I also think that, Salkilld at the same time has the weaker chin and weaker durability, which is why I think this matchup is so intriguing because on the ground, I think both these guys are going to scramble to the best of their ability. And I honestly don't know who has more elite BJJ, whether it be Paddy Pimblett or Quillan Salkilld. I kind of want to lean Paddy Pimblett right now for the more elite BJJ at the moment. But honestly, that's not grounded in much of any proof. I think that, Paddy Pimblett is just kind of proving it at a little bit of a higher level. But I mean, the sub on Gamrot, like I said, is just as high quality as anything Paddy Pimblett's done. So that is also something to note. I think overall, the thing with this matchup is that Salkilld, I think, will be outpointing Paddy Pimblett on the feet. And I think that's kind of how this matchup's going to go. And the thing with Paddy Pimblett is that he doesn't have great takedowns, right? So if Paddy Pimblett doesn't have like insane takedowns, then it's going to be Quillan Salkilld that can dictate when this fight gets to the ground, if he wants to grapple or any of that. So I think if a fight like this played out, Paddy Pimblett's going to have to land something big and hurt Quillan Salkilld, which I think is possible. I think Salkild's durability is going to be still in question. Paddy Pimblett's isn't. At the same time, I think Salkilld could drop some really damaging shots on Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett might be eating a lot of them. So in a matchup against Paddy Pimblett, the way I see it going is I see primarily a striking match, honestly. If Salkilld wants to level change, that is up to him. If he wants to go test his BJJ against Paddy Pimblett, I actually think if Pimblett isn't hurt, which it's really hard to get Pimblett hurt inside the octagon, then I think Pimblett might get the better of the scrambles. But I also think that, the gap on the ground between these guys won't be large in any context. So if Pimblett is getting the better of the scrambles against Salkilld, Salkilld would probably just not take him down again, whether the next round starts or if he can stand back up at any point in time and then just kind of outpoint Paddy Pimblett on the feet. So I see a striking match play out between Paddy and Salkilld. I'm going to lean Salkilld in this matchup just because I think Paddy will have to land something big and Paddy can't dictate if he grapples. So I don't think that's like a good combination for Paddy Pimblett here. I think overall Salkilld is a slightly cleaner striker. He is still hittable. Salkilld is not like the craziest striker in the world. I think his power carries through a lot more than you might think, especially in like some of his recent matchups. Like his power carried through against Gamrot, got Gamrot hurt pretty early. His power definitely carried through against Nasrat as well. So I think that Salkilld is still a raw-ish striker. He's good. He is elite. But, there's going to be some better strikers he's definitely going to face, especially where he's at in this division right now. So I do think Pimblett is one that he is better than on the feet. I think on the ground, these guys might be a little bit close, but I also think that Salkilld will dictate when this fight goes to the grappling, not Paddy Pimblett. So I will actually slightly lean Quillan Salkilld. If Pimblett wanted to win this fight, what he would have to do is either land something big or really push a pace on Salkilld and work that cardio to the ground of Salkilld. So give me Salkilld to win this one. I'd probably put this at like potentially a minus 150 Salkilld. I think this is a true minus 150 Salkilld. I think he should have been minus 300, minus 400 against Gamrot. I know that's easy to say after the fight, but you can go check back on this video. We were saying that before the fight. So, I'm going to give Salkilld the slight lean against Paddy Pimblett. I think this is a matchup he wins. Let's move on to the next contender. The next matchup is really intriguing as well, but it's more of a linear breakdown, and that is against Max Holloway. Now, a couple things here is that Max Holloway is one of the most durable fighters on the roster. His chin is still amazing, and that really reduces and negates a lot of the threat coming from Quillan Salkild's power that he does use as a big threat for him on the feet. On top of that, Holloway is a far more refined striker than, anyone that Quillan Salkilld has fought. So Holloway honestly will piece up Quillan Salkilld on the feet. And the thing is, Quillan Salkild's big power shots will, not be as effective against someone like Holloway who can eat those, who's, eaten those from a lot of other strikers like Justin Gaethje and stuff like that. So I think that in this matchup, Salkild's going to have to offensively wrestle. And if we assume that, all these matchups are either fight night main events or, pay-per-view main events for a title in the future, something like that, and we assume that these are 5-round fights, if Salkilld has to 5 rounds, 25 minutes hard offensively wrestle against Max Holloway, on top of that, we saw Holloway get dominated for 25 minutes by Charles Oliveira, and his submission defense held up against Charles. I don't think we have any proof to kind of point towards that will say that, Salkild's BJJ is more elite than Charles Oliveira. Like I said, people might be overrating it right now because scrambling with Gamrot on the ground while Gamrot is hurt is a lot different. And I think that, in a fight like this, once again, similar to the Paddy Pimblett breakdown, if Max Holloway is not super hurt when they start scrambling, I don't think Max Holloway will get subbed by Quillan Salkilld just in a pure grappling exchange. So Salkilld will have to wrestle. I think this is a very close fight. Currently, to this day, Salkilld hasn't shown to me that he can, offensively wrestle for 25 minutes. He did this against Yanal Ashmus, was gassing out, fairly hard. And Ashmus is a different level, like a lot lower level than a Max Holloway. Max Holloway also will piece up Salkilld on the feet, in my opinion. I don't think Salkilld is the most refined striker. like I said, styles make fights. And I think in this fight, I think Gamrot will have an easier time beating Max Holloway than a Quillan Salkilld, especially after that Charles Oliveira fight, watching that. So I think that I would lean Max Holloway here. I think I'd probably give Max Holloway a minus 170 price tag on a fight like this. I think Holloway should be able to kind of keep it standing enough and then piece up Salkilld. I think as Salkilld starts to fade, there's only really one path for Salkilld in this fight. I think he's not going to have success hurting and knocking out Max Holloway. I don't see him submitting Max Holloway unless Max Holloway is hurt, which I think is hard for Salkilld to do. And then on top of that, yes, he could wrestle Holloway to a decision, but we've only seen Charles do that. And we've seen, Salkilld kind of gas a little bit. Like I said, the jury's out on his cardio, and I actually don't trust his cardio. The more I watch, Salkilld is a great fighter, and I really like fighters like Salkilld who always go for the finish, even against Gamrot, for example, this weekend. A lot of fighters in that scenario would let go of the body triangle and just maintain position. They're winning the round, bank the round, go back out there, see what happens in round two. No, Salkilld was holding onto that body triangle, trying to find a rear naked choke, trying to get that fight out of there. And that's great. That's kind of how you should be fighting, honestly. But if he fights like that, can he go 25 minutes fighting like that? I honestly don't think so. And if I had to bet, I would be like, no, he can't. So I think someone like Holloway would probably drop the first round for sure against Quillan Salkilld based off of control time. But then starting, late in that second round till the end of the fifth round, I think Holloway would really build into a fight like this. So I'd probably peg Holloway around minus 170 in this matchup. I think that he probably wins it by decision. If Salkild's cardio is worse than, what anyone thinks, then maybe Holloway gets like a late knockout. But overall, I think Salkilld is he's good. He's like a gamer, as in the fact that he's down to fight. He's down to thug it out. I think he's a little bit of a savage in his own right. So I don't think he would get knocked out by Max Holloway, but I think that Holloway would win this one by decision just by out-voluming and outworking Salkilld in the later rounds, because Salkilld will really only have one path to victory against a Max Holloway. So the third ranked lightweight, which I think is another really close fight for Quillan Salkilld, is Charles Oliveira. And this one's an interesting one because Salkild's power is really at play here. He can definitely hurt and wobble at Charles Oliveira. A lot of people can hurt and wobble at Charles Oliveira. That being said, though, I actually think that Oliveira wins this one. And I think Oliveira's path to this one is actually what everyone thought Gamrot was going to do last week. I think that with Oliveira has proven that he can wrestle back and forth for 25 minutes. Oliveira is actually an underrated wrestler at the same time. And on top of that, Oliveira is not afraid to kind of actually just scramble and roll with you. Oliveira will accept bottom position on a takedown entry to then go continue rolling with you. And I think if you go BJJ, just pure back and forth, I'm going to take Oliveira over Salkilld every day of the week. Now, on the feet, this fight is really interesting because Salkilld can definitely hurt Oliveira. Can Salkilld just put Oliveira out cold is the real question. I don't think so. I think this is an interesting fight because I think I can see Salkilld winning this by like a club and sub and hurt Oliveira and then sub him type of scenario. I can see Salkilld winning this fight, by a knockout, by just knocking Oliveira out. I can also see, the same thing going both ways. I can see Oliveira subbing Salkilld. I can see Oliveira knocking Salkilld out. I can also see Oliveira winning this fight by decision. And that's the one thing I can't see Quillan Salkilld doing in this fight, is winning by decision. Because at the end of the day, Oliveira is going to kind of push the pace in a fight like this. Oliveira is always going to kind of, try to get going downhill. Once Oliveira gets going downhill, it's extremely scary. It's one of the most unstoppable forces inside the UFC once Oliveira really starts going inside the octagon. So I just think that, in a fight like this, if this fight was to go to a decision, it would definitely be Oliveira picking it up on the cards, because the pace that Oliveira is going to put on this fight, I don't think Salkilld can keep up. Now, obviously, Oliveira is reckless. Salkilld can catch him with something big. So Salkilld could win this fight by knockout or submission at any point in time. I think that is possible. I think that's fair. But I just don't see, Salkilld out wrestling Oliveira. I think that on the ground, when it comes to wrestling and grappling, Oliveira is better. I think on the feet, they're, fairly evenly matched. I think Oliveira is a better striker, but Salkilld definitely has a better chin. So this one's going to be interesting. I think Salkilld kind of has to put Oliveira out cold or hurt him quite badly to win this matchup on the feet and not let Oliveira recover. I think Oliveira's recovery is really good, and I just don't see, Salkilld having the grappling chops of someone like Islam Makhachev where, once he's hurt and he's on the ground, Islam Makhachev is snatching up a choke and Oliveira just can't really get out of it. I think Oliveira is going to have decent enough time. We've seen grapplers, I think, of this caliber, like a Beneil Dariush, for example, be on top of Oliveira, and Oliveira is kind of still pretty calm in that scenario. So I don't know. This is interesting. I think this is going to be like a classic fight, almost like a classic Oliveira fight, one he had with Dustin, one he had with Justin Gaethje, along those lines. But I think that if Salkilld doesn't put Oliveira out early and this fight goes deep, and some of that power from Salkilld is going away. Oliveira has taken his best shot and knows he can take it from Salkilld. Then Oliveira will start going downhill, and this will be a real problem. So I would lean Oliveira in this matchup. So far, I think that Salkilld only really beats Paddy Pimblett in the top 5. I'm leaning Oliveira here. I think Oliveira, if he doesn't get put out early, like I said, will take over in this fight, can find a finish, can also win it on the cards. I don't think that, Salkilld has as much equity the second this fight goes into like the third round, for example. So I could put Oliveira here maybe at like a minus 140, minus 150 range. And I think that at the end of the day, maybe if this fight gets booked a couple years from now or something like that, Oliveira, as he gets older, that line will just kind of shrink up closer, and Salkilld at one point will be the favorite. But I think if this fight was to be booked today for 5 rounds, I would say that, I'd slightly lean Oliveira around that minus 150 price tag. This matchup against Arman Tsarukyan, honestly, I think is a pretty easy matchup for Arman to beat Salkilld. I think that this fight kind of only goes one way, and that's Arman winning by decision. I think overall, Arman's wrestling and control is something to really note in this fight. And I also think that Arman has a good chin. He has good kicks too. He likes to be at kicking range when he's striking. So, unless Salkilld lands like one of those high kicks again, but those type of knockouts like the high kick against Nazar or Hawk Press, that's not something you can bank on in a fight. Obviously, those are tools you keep in the locker. That's something you train in the training room. I'm not saying it's luck or anything like that, but I'm also saying that like if someone's really aware of that, it's going to be really hard to land one of those. So I think overall, where kind of Arman likes to stand in range on the feet will kind of only really leave those kicks to be in question. And when this fight comes in close, I think that the one thing Arman will do really well against Salkilld is out wrestle him and just kind of bank rounds. I think Arman's just going to go in this fight, bank rounds against Salkilld as Salkilld kind of gets later into this fight. Like I said, Salkild's cardio is going to be something in question for me. He had one offensive wrestling clinic against Yanal Ashmus, and it really took it all out of him in 3 rounds. And these are much higher level fighters than Yanal Ashmus. So I'm going to really note that when I look into these fights, because I think in a 5-round fight against much higher level competition, when that's like your only path to victory, things get tough. Now, obviously, in a fight like this, Salkilld probably wants this fight on the feet, in my opinion. But overall, I think that Arman's going to be too good on the ground, and Arman's just going to be able to kind of control and bank rounds against Salkilld. So I'd probably put, Arman Tsarukyan at a minus 250 price tag to beat Salkilld. I don't think Salkilld can hurt him. Power is going to be the only thing potentially going for Salkilld here, but I don't see Salkilld, submitting Arman Tsarukyan, and I don't see Salkilld beating Arman in a decision when Arman probably has equally good striking to a Quillan Salkilld, and at the same time has great durability on his own right, and will have the wrestling credentials to kind of bank rounds, win rounds with control time. If a round is close, maybe Arman can get a takedown here and there and get like a minute and a half, 2 minutes of control time. And, Quillan Salkilld will be stuck playing jiu-jitsu off his back. So give me Arman Tsarukyan to win this one. Like I said, probably a minus 250 price tag. And I actually don't think this is a really tough matchup for Tsarukyan. Moving on to the number 1 ranked lightweight on the planet is Ilia Topuria. And once again, I find it hard to see Quillan Salkilld beating Ilia Topuria. Now, we saw that little baby jab from Beneil Dariush drop Quillan Salkilld, and that's really going to be in my mind in a matchup like this. Now, Ilia Topuria is going to have to find a way inside the range. So I do think that Salkilld will have some decent success against Topuria early, but I think this will look like a classic Topuria performance, honestly. Salkilld won't be able to do much to Topuria on the ground. He's short. He's got a stocky base. Really hard to take down, in my opinion. And overall, I think that Salkilld will just keep this fight on the feet, and Salkilld will have enough success on the feet to honestly not look to mix things up too early. But unlike Justin Gaethje, once Salkilld at one point has his back on the fence and Ilia Topuria's unloading combinations in range, and Salkilld tries to shoot, Ilia Topuria will just shrug him off. I don't think Salkilld can take that damage like Justin Gaethje, honestly. I think Justin Gaethje, specifically in that fight, just was a really bad matchup for Ilia. The way he fought it, Ilia fought it differently, which Ilia has the skills to do. He, could have came out with the win in that matchup, but overall, the way Ilia wanted to fight in that fight, if he goes out there and fights like that against Salkilld, it should be easy work, honestly. And I think, the way you beat Justin Gaethje, the way Ilia would have to fight Justin Gaethje wouldn't actually work against someone like Quillan Salkilld. Salkild's long, he's rangy, and he's decent, but he is hittable. Doesn't move his head super well, and I don't think Salkild's wrestling will work against Ilia Topuria in this matchup. I think that Salkilld will be stuck on the back foot quite a bit, and once Ilia's in range, I think it's over for Salkilld. So I think Ilia wins this fight by knockout. I'd put this at the same minus 250 range like Arman. I'll probably move actually both those fights to the minus 300 range now that I think about it more. I think this is a tough matchup for Salkilld, and I think this is another lightweight contender that he doesn't actually beat. And finally, the champion, Justin Gaethje. Does Quillan Salkilld beat Justin Gaethje at lightweight? I think the answer is no, honestly. I think that, at the end of the day, Quillan Salkilld will have a very competitive fight against Gaethje. Honestly, I think he'll have a more competitive fight against Justin Gaethje than he would Ilia, Arman, or Charles Oliveira. But at the end of the day, I think that, Justin Gaethje will probably get to Salkilld and just get more reaction out of Salkilld. Overall, Salkilld probably will actually have some decent success on the feet once again at range. I don't think Salkild's grappling will work against Justin Gaethje, and Gaethje will be able to shrug off quite a bit of it. Now, once again, Salkilld will have to do a wrestling clinic to beat Justin Gaethje in this matchup. And without getting Justin Gaethje hurt, I don't see Salkilld submitting Justin Gaethje on the ground. So I think it's a very similar matchup in the sense of, if Justin Gaethje's not hurt and Salkilld gets a takedown, I think Gaethje's submission defense will be good. The jury is still too out on Salkild's cardio. I don't think he can match the pace of a Justin Gaethje. So unless he grapples for 25 minutes offensively against Justin Gaethje, which I don't think he can do successfully, I think Justin Gaethje overall will catch him on the feet. And honestly, I think Justin Gaethje wins this fight by knockout. I don't see a lot of people other than Charles or Justin knocking Quillan Salkilld out. I think those are the two people that probably knock out Quillan Salkilld is Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. I think they got real power. Oh, sorry, and Ilia Topuria. I think those three people knock out Quillan Salkilld. Justin Gaethje, I think, will have like a later stage knockout. This fight will be probably like more of a round 4, round 5 knockout. Similar with Charles, probably round 3, 4, 5. I think Ilia Topuria knocks out Salkilld early, but I think overall, I don't see Salkilld be able to wrestle offensively Justin Gaethje for 25 minutes. I think he will gas out. I think Gaethje will put up a fight, will stand up, will scramble well. Will stay safe when he's in danger from a submission. And I think overall on the feet, Salkilld will have good success touching up Gaethje, but when it comes to durability, chin for chin, I don't think Salkilld wants to go up with Justin Gaethje on that. When it comes to power, Salkilld has it, but so does Gaethje. So I think Gaethje overall will eventually, through a bunch of volume, chin Salkilld late in the fight. So now that you kind of look back at it at the rankings, I don't see Salkilld actually doing really well from this point. I was really confident in him beating Mateusz Gamrot, but I think out of the top 5 lightweights, including the champ as well, I think he beats Paddy Pimblett. I would slightly favor him to beat Paddy Pimblett, but I think he has almost a pick and fight against Max Holloway. Then I think from Charles, Ilia, Arman, and Justin Gaethje, I think those are where he really struggles. I don't see him winning. So, lightweight has always been full of killers at the top. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I know a lot of people are really high on Salkilld. Am I too low on Salkilld now? I don't know. I was high on him for that matchup. I think stylistically now he's in trouble. Am I underestimating Salkild's chin and cardio? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Let me know how he matches up against each of these guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.